Hello, Warhammer fans. Welcome to episode 40 of the Andy and Rem Show. Bum, 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 bum. So, as you can see, we are currently without a Remington, so I'm not going to attempt a musical intro at the moment because Nurgle has taken quite a tight grip on me at the moment, and I don't think my voice is in any condition to do justice to the usual standard of music that we have on this show. But word on the street is that Mr. Remington could be along at any time, and he may enter the hangout and immediately pounce straight on us with some music at any time. So keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But it's a packed show, regardless of when Mr. Remington turns up. And to help me dissect all of this week's juicy goodness, we have Mr. Stu Gibson. Hello.
Hello, folks.
Community mainstay, regular audience member.
That's true. Every week, typing away.
So what have you been up to since the last time we had you on the show, which I believe was the Christmas special?
It was the Christmas special. I wish I had more games to tell you about, but only 2 since the last time. So I've been getting into some other games. But yeah, still waiting on that first Age of Sigmar loss.
Still undefeated.
Well, the last one was a draw, so I'm not counting it as a loss.
Well, if you manage to make it to an Andypalooza / Remcon at some point, I'm sure we can hand out some swift vengeance.
That's what I was hoping for. I was hoping to come along to Andypalooza / Remcon and get totally curb stomped and love every minute of it, but sadly I don't think I'll make this one.
Yeah, we are planning on making it a semi-regular occurrence, though. Now, audience, welcome, of course. Let's see who we've got in there with the handy View Active Members feature. We have got Barrett Muscleman, Bazooka J Rambo, Benno Exodite, Big Jim, don't remember seeing that name before, Craig Bowles, Dave Knat, or Nat. We've got Dreaming Cyborg, Drunken_Elf, of course, Fluffy Dread, Gary Waddingham, Malt Graffelman, Matthias Schaefer, MC1 Gamer, Mickey Jenver, Mirkwood, Rhino of Pleasure, Rob Lloyd Sweet, Rural Goblin, YouTube Newbie, and Was Gob, and a couple of people that I saw that aren't on this list right now. I did see Dreddy in there a minute ago, and there was Khorne on the Cob was in earlier as well, as in Khorne, the Chaos God on the Cob. So, we were discussing what the greatest names were that we've had, and that is definitely up there on the list. And a few people have just popped in now. Game Guardist, Darth Plagueis 101, Mini Warrior, Marcus Eckerheim, and I think that pretty much covers everyone for now. Oh no, there's Archaeosis 1861 as well. Can't forget that person.
It's names like Khorne on the Cob that make me regret using my own name and not come up with something better.
Yeah, when you see things like that and the likes of Shaven Skaven that we sometimes have in there as well. So it's obviously a packed week. There's been a lot of developments. So let's fly straight into it, shall we? So first things first, this one isn't too new or interesting, but people were wondering whether the Stardrake was going to look better from different angles, because we only saw it from the one so far, which is pretty much this. People thought maybe the front limb was a little bit awkwardly posed and the wings as well. So we've got 360 now.
Ooh.
Check this out. Bum, bum, bum. So let's look at it from this angle. You can see that the wings, from the front, they look quite low, but you can see there that really it's just quite a long neck under there, isn't it?
Yeah. I'd heard a few people complaining about they thought that the wings were actually coming out of its side and not out of its back. But when you see it from the reverse angle, they are. They're not really coming out of its side. They're a bit higher up.
You can clearly see that they're in the usual wing location. They're just posed in a more Terrorgeist kind of posture rather than the usual dragon, which is really huge. And
even if they were coming out of the side, I still love it. I still think it's a great looking model. I'm still not entirely 100% on the giant breastplate. I think it's a little bit too chunky. But it doesn't ruin it at all.
It might be a little bit much, and you can see the armor goes all the way up on the neck there. It makes sense. If you're going to put armor on a dragon, you put it on that point because that's going to be the bit that's going to get shot at, I imagine.
Yeah, you cover the soft bits. That's how it works.
Yeah. And then, of course, there are the other variants. Here's another one, which doesn't look drastically different, but it's got the different guy on the back. And let me see if there was any difference between those two Star Drakes. So there he is there. And there. I think it's just the paintwork that's different, maybe.
Is it just the one head that you get with it? Do you remember?
Let's have a look at this third one and see if that's got the same head as well. If it wants to load. Oh no, here's another head. There we go. Closed mouth. I actually like that one.
Yeah.
It looks much more traditionally dragon-esque, I would say, with the mouth closed like that. And you don't see a lot of closed mouth dragons. You've got the orc wyvern, the Ashag the Slaughterer. His wyvern has its mouth closed, doesn't it? But usually all the monsters have these huge, wide open mouths. It looks quite funny, actually.
I think I prefer the one with the closed mouth. I'm not sure why, but maybe it's because it just looks really different.
I think I do, actually. I quite like this one.
Do you think you'll be getting one?
Well, looking at the price point of £85,
I know.
It's not an easy decision.
I mean, even at £50 for the Celestant Prime, that was enough to make me just convert my own. But
yeah, the Celestant Prime though is basically just one guy on swirly bits.
Yeah, but if you're getting a giant dragon for the money, I think this guy's probably worth it.
I would say if there's a large model, this is maybe the one to get, as far as I'm concerned. I'm not sure whether I prefer this to the Magma Droth. I think possibly it's a close one.
I saw a picture, I can't remember who it was that did it. It was a picture of someone who'd put wings onto a Magma Droth and painted it as if it was a dragon. I think it was a mount for a Chaos Lord, and it actually looked brilliant.
Well, you know what they say, you can put wings on a Magma Droth, but you can't make it drink.
That's true.
It is. So, I think it's looking pretty sweet. The wing position, as you can see, isn't as silly as people were first musing. The armor plates, I don't mind them. I'm going to assume that you can't just remove the armor plates and go without them, though. I think it's just going to be like naked plastic under there if you were to take the armor plates off.
I was wondering if that would be an option, just to leave it off, because I think it would look okay with just the armor on the legs.
Let's look at the sprue then to see whether that's going to be possible. So it's going to be these bits here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, well, there's a limb. I think that's probably. I know that might be the front. It's hard to tell, actually, isn't it, with the way they chop things up on the computer.
I know, it's difficult to make out what it'll look like put together. If you could just leave it out, or even if there's a small gap, we could maybe green stuff it.
Well, you can see here, there's the main torso, and there's a bit of the armor plate stuck up there.
Yeah.
So it'll be one of those weird ones where it links together in a really bizarre manner. So you can't just say this is the torso, this is an arm, this is the shoulder. It's going to have bits of other parts stuck to it all over the place. I don't know how they decide where to make those cuts. I'm not sure if it's completely arbitrary or whether it's dictated by the computer or what. But it does make converting slightly more difficult sometimes.
I know, it's not quite as bad as the like the models you get in the starter box that are sort of snap fit kind.
Yeah, they can be difficult sometimes, but at least they're plastic.
That's true.
And here he is among all the Dracoths. So he's quite a large beast next to them.
Yeah, at least you're getting plenty of model for your money.
You're getting a hunk of plastic, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the box, and
ooh, nice.
They're really pushing the boat out here, aren't they?
Yeah, it's just like the box Archeon came in with the chaos symbols over the side of it. And I suppose they had to do something similar.
No expense spared. Got some nice close-up of the riders here, which look exactly the same, but with a different arm. Now, let's go over into the comments and see what the audience are making of this so far. So, Marcus Eckerheim says maybe they can fix with green stuff. I was assuming he's talking about whether you want to remove the armor plates.
Yeah.
You'd probably have to sculpt the entire front of a dragon if you don't want the armor plates, I'm going to guess. So
Yeah,
it might be difficult.
I certainly don't hate the armor plate enough to go to all the effort of trying to green stuff over the whole chest. If that was the case, then definitely just leave it.
Amorii Westgate says the dragon is hideous, time to proxy.
Oh,
That's definitely an option because everyone has a lot of Stormcast models lying around from all the starter boxes and so on. So if you wanted to buy another dragon and just stick him on there, and then
Reaper do plenty of cheap dragons.
they do. And the current Mantic dragon's actually quite nice. I wonder if anyone is going to put him on there. That'd be interesting. The Mantic dragon that they're doing head swaps with.
That one is really nice, actually.
Yeah, Mantic are going a bit further than they have done with their plastic kits recently. Bringing out some bigger stuff. Craig Bowles says mouth closed is better. I don't know whether he's talking about the dragon or just some other aspect of his personal life. But I'm going to assume he's referring to the dragon.
I hope so.
Dreaming Cyborg prefers the mouth closed as well. And Was Gob corrected me. I said more dragon-esque. He says the correct term is more dragonish. Okay. Right then. Someone was talking about it being unridden, but other people were shooting it down immediately and saying, no chance. Dragons do tend to have someone on them in Warhammer, don't they? There are some monsters that you have running around on their own, like chimeras and so on, but not usually dragons. So, with that, let's move on to our next item, which is... Bum, bum, bum. Yep, if you weren't completely sick of Khorne already in Age of Sigmar, then you've got another healthy dose right here. More characters. So what do you think of these bad boys?
Of course, I'm super happy to get more Chaos models. The more the better. But to be honest, these three I really, really like. I really didn't think they would bother doing models for. See, the one on the right, I think, is the Exalted Deathbringer, and the one on the left is the Aspiring Deathbringer. And I really didn't think they would bother doing models for those, because there already are some out and they're quite easy to make up your own. But those are really cool. And the alternative Slaughter Priest in the middle, I prefer to the last one that was out. I'm not too sure about the helmeted head on him. I think I prefer the bear head. But yeah.
Yes, people were saying when the Stormcast had the alternative sculpt of one of their models, they were thinking, well, maybe it was just they realised the old pose was hideous because he was poking himself in the eye with a horn.
Yeah, I think they might have realised that they kind of dropped the ball with that, and that's what made them. Because I feel like I really couldn't think of any other reason why they would bother doing another version of the Heralder. I really don't think they need to. I was expecting it to be a multi-part kit for the Lord Relictor instead, the guy with the skull face.
But what do you think about this guy though, with the Slaughter Priest being redone as well? So there's two different variations of that now.
I can't complain too much because I really prefer the new one. The other guy was pretty cool too, with the huge axe and the beard, but yeah, I really like this guy. I love his sword. The sword looks terrifying.
That is quite a horrific looking sword, isn't it? I will say they are quite dangly, aren't they, these models? They've all got some kind of danglage going on, definitely. Yeah. Especially this guy.
The only one, the one on the right, definitely is my favourite, because he has an alternative head. It's just a big... It's almost like an old style Marauder champion. It's just like a big long beard he's got and long hair, and it looks amazing.
Well, we've got some more images here. So let's have a look. We've got the Slaughter Priest here. You can see some different angles on some of his danglage and his foot being positioned on something. It looks like... Is that a skull, do you think, there?
It probably is. Yeah, I think it's safe to assume if it's a Khorne model, he's going to be standing on skulls.
I don't know. It looks like maybe a horse, or maybe even. Well, it wouldn't be a Tyranid skull, but that's how it looks. It's kind of long, isn't it?
It's quite. It could be a Skaven skull.
Yeah, it could be. Can't really see with this slightly fuzzy image that someone's just harvested. So I'm going to do my best, despite my voice potentially failing at some point during the episode. I'm going to read out these descriptions here. The gore-soaked clerics of the blood god's twisted faith. The slaughter priests lead Khorne's followers in their vile devotions. Forever tainted by their unholy creed. They are a locus of vile power that warps all around them. Well, do you think that's an apt description of them?
Well, as much as it's ever an apt description, it's always a little bit over the top. But yeah, not bad. The model certainly looks the part.
10-piece kit. It doesn't seem to mention anything about alternative parts for this guy. So
No,
maybe not.
there, I didn't see any images for an alternative head or anything. I didn't think there would be alternative weapons because this is the alternative weapon kit. When the other slaughter priest was the other option, but easy enough to put your own different head on them.
Was there already an aspiring Deathbringer?
No. In the War Scrolls, the picture they had for the aspiring Deathbringer was the old Khorne aspiring champion, I think it was, or exalted champion. No, aspiring champion, and who had like the big axe sort of pointed out forward and the little ball and chain thing.
Right.
So there was no model, but this one, I really like the hammer, but other than that, I'm not too sure about this model.
I think maybe he's suffering from looking a little bit 40k-ish.
See, I thought the thing, he looks too much like a regular Blood Warrior who's just picked up a hammer. Instead, he's not. He doesn't quite stand out enough from the others.
Maybe.
A different. I don't know, he's wearing the same armor. He's wearing a similar helmet. He's carrying the same axe as the Blood Warriors. The hammer and the bigger base are the only things I can see so far that are really different.
What do you think of his outrageous head decoration in the usual Khorne style?
I do quite like the big, ridiculous, over-the-top Khorne helmets. I don't really mind too much that they are straying a little bit into the 40k Khorne Berserker territory because, you know, they are all Khorne guys. So
I'm sure people are going to be using them for that purpose as well. Maybe just sticking chain swords on them or something. Now let's have this description. Driven by ambition and bloodlust, an aspiring Deathbringer's only goal is to become a mighty lord of Khorne. But to do so, they must first gain the favor of the blood god and massacre all those who stand in their way. Well,
yeah, that sounds about right.
Wouldn't want to get in the way of this guy. Of all of these models, if you had to actually physically become one of them, I would probably choose this guy just because he's not got a completely exposed torso.
Yeah, you want a bit of armor, don't you?
I certainly would. I don't know whether Khorne's warriors are capable of actually worrying about things, trifling matters such as wounds and death.
It's funny that the aspiring Deathbringer is sort of armor clad head to toe, but the exalted Deathbringer is sort of half naked.
That is interesting, actually. Boom.
Maybe he's just that much of a killing machine, he doesn't really need armor.
So here's the exalted Deathbringer with impaling spear, and there's the bearded head you were talking about there.
Yeah.
That actually does look incredibly cool.
Yeah, I much prefer the bearded head to the helmeted one. I think it looks so much cooler.
Yeah, people have long said that Stormcast gain a lot of personality when you take off the helmets and give them actual human-looking heads, or even other races. And I think the same can be said for Chaos.
Yeah, definitely.
If you had a whole army of crazy bearded chaotic guys like this, that would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, doing Warhammer Fantasy Battles. That I always wanted a, not that I ever got one, but I always wanted an option to have a Marauder hero, like a proper sort of just barbarian leader type guy. And obviously you could do that and just use the profile for something else, but I always wanted to get an actual model for it. So this seems to have sort of got up finally.
So, what do you think? This guy with a beard, and then maybe an entire army of models, these new Khorne guys, but using, let's say, Space Wolf heads on them, so they're all bearded and crazy looking.
I did have an idea to do something like that a while ago, and I've got a bag of Space Wolf heads lying around that I was going to stick on. Can't remember what I was going to use them on. Probably Marauder bodies, I think, just to make a sort of crazy berserkery looking army of Marauders.
Well, there you go. Maybe this guy and then his own personal retinue of helmetless lunatics.
Yeah.
With crazy flowing beards. I think that could be quite fun. So let's have his description then, if there's anything left in my voice tonight. Exalted Deathbringers are mighty champions of the blood god. Inhuman monsters who have butchered their way to glory in Khorne's blood-bound hordes. Theirs is a life of eternal warfare and savage slaughter. So these guys have been cutting a swathe through the enemy, by the sounds of it. To become an Exalted Deathbringer, presumably you have to have brought a lot of death to become exalted.
Oh, yeah. I thought it was really interesting that they gave him a spear as well. A spear isn't really a... I don't know, it's not really a weapon you normally associate with Khorne.
Yeah, it's not that up close and personal, is it?
No, I mean, obviously the axe is their kind of weapon of choice, but it was nice to see a bit of shaking things up a little bit.
Yeah, normally you associate Khorne with just being right there on the front lines, not even worrying about hiding behind someone. If there's one of his own troops in the way, he'd probably just cut their head off to get past rather than poking them with a spear.
Yeah, the weapons on the aspiring Deathbringer seem to, they kind of make a little bit more, they seem to a little bit more sort of traditional for Khorne. Just now, an axe and a hammer, that'll do.
Now, I could firmly get behind it if it had a rule where if it kills a model with the spear, then it can gain like an extra attack because the spear goes completely through the enemy and then he tries to stab someone else with it.
That would be good.
That would be quite fun. If you could like skewer multiple people with the spear, every time it kills a model, then you can go through and hit someone else as long as they're in range. If it has like a 3-inch range and you can just skewer 3 or 4 models with it, that would be amazing.
That would be awesome, but I don't want to go on ahead and and hope that Games Workshop thought of that.
Well, the rules haven't been leaked yet, so maybe they've still got time to change it because surely they're going to be watching this show.
Oh, of course, everyone watches it.
Definitely. Well, there are quite a few people watching right now. We've got 66 viewers at the moment, and that's, I think they're just in anticipation of Remington's potential arrival, actually, waiting to hear that musical intro. I'm sure some people just listen to the music and then they're immediately gone. So it could be an interesting ploy, actually, for the show to not do the music until halfway through, so people actually have to stick around rather than just getting their music in there. So I'm going to see what people have been saying about these guys. So, YouTube newbie, crazy bearded guys, they're called Marauders. Yes, they are. Bazooka J. Rambo, more beards. Skeleton Flower finally turned up a bit late. So it's lucky we had a late start on this episode, so you don't miss that much of the show. Let's see what else we've got here. We've got YouTube newbie, you probably need a wheelbarrow full of death, at least, Andy. I would say so. Fluffy Dread, please release an album. Well, when we get up to episode 52, so it'll be one entire year of the Andy and Rem show, I'm actually going to take every single intro and outro song and put them in a video. So that is going to be quite lengthy and it's going to take quite a while to put together, with, of course, every episode thumbnail over the top of it. So that's going to be nice. Amorai Westgate, guys, the Slaughter Priestess Revolution for GW. It's the first time the Morning Star is depicted as having weight. No longer helium-filled, hovering morning stars on bend whip chains.
Fair enough.
Well, let's have a look. Yeah, it is. It does seem to have some weight to it, doesn't it? The way it's just dangling down there, it's not just floating over his head. Usually, anytime anyone has a chain weapon, they're kind of in action with it, aren't they? Even things like Night Goblin fanatics, they're always swinging around with it in the air.
Like the Khorne Wrathmongers, they're just crazily swinging around their arms.
But this guy is actually embracing the dangler, as it were. It'd be quite terrifying if he's just standing there holding up this thing, and you can see how hefty it is, and you know he's about to start swinging it. And even if he doesn't, he's got that sword as well.
Yeah, I think that I prefer that kind of pose where they're just holding it, because so that you can get a sense that it is something menacing and something with a bit of weight. Whereas the Wrathmongers just flailing around with their flails. It just looks a bit, I don't know, goofy almost.
Was this weapon option already on the War Scroll?
I think so.
And do you have any recollection of whether it's better or worse than what the previous model was armed with?
I do remember thinking there wasn't too much in it, to be honest, between the great weapon and the two. I definitely remember thinking that I would prefer to go for that, to go for the sword and the flail.
Right.
Can't remember the rules. There's so many now.
Well, let's have another look at what the audience is saying. Rhino of Pleasure, the Censer Bearers got hanging danglies. That is true.
True, yeah.
Mini Warrior says, yes, hanging danglies. Everyone is a big fan of danglers, apparently, in the audience tonight. There's nothing wrong with a bit of danglage. Let's see. Fluffy Dread, it was the person who was asking about the release of the album. So, yeah, when that video comes out with all the intro and outro songs, we may have to just get an audio version of it available for download at a small fee of around about £87, I would say. So you can either go for that or a Stardrake. And I think I know which one's going to bring you more long-term enjoyment. It's definitely going to be the album.
Well, definitely, yeah.
And especially my songs as well. I'll have to put in some features so you can't skip past those, because they are the highlight. I'm not sure I could sing in my usual high-pitched manner tonight. So we're really hoping that Mr. Rem turns up at some point, otherwise it's going to be a music-less show, which would be quite sad.
Oh.
So, shall we go on to the next topic then? Because this is also quite succulent and juicy. So, people have been speculating for quite a while on the future of certain armies, namely the likes of the humans, the Empire and Bretonnians, and the rumours floating around about the likes of orcs and goblins as well. But some of the rumours are going to be settled once and for all, because next up we have the Grand Alliance Order book. So, let's get the old screen share again, because I've got some images of that ready to roll. And here we go. So, there it is, Grand Alliance Order. And of course, look who it's got on the front. Who else?
Who else?
Now, sadly, it appears to be in French. So, I don't think we really need to actually read what it comes across in that text there. But we get the gist of it.
It's always French, German, or Spanish, isn't it? Never English. Never
English first. Here you can see that dispossessed. So that is, of course, the Duardin. Phoenix Temple. Devoted of Sigmar. Which appear to be, that's like the, is that the War Altar there?
Yeah, War Altar, Flagellants, and Warrior Priest, I think.
Now, Lance Host. Are those Bretonnian knights there? It's difficult to see.
I thought they were...
are they elves?
What do you call them? Yeah, I thought they were dragon princes.
They could be. Yeah, they do look like that, don't they?
Yeah. I was a lot more surprised by the Demigryph knights.
Ah,
Is that demigryphs on the left? Sort of in between the
here.
Dracoth Knights?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
does look like demogryphs right there in the middle, actually, in
Um,
among the sea of Dracoths.
yeah. I thought they would have been gone.
Well, they're still very tasty models, aren't they?
They're excellent models. Was surprised that they weren't gone, but really happy that they're not.
So these are the images that we've had leaked so far, and there are a lot of accompanying rumors as well, which I'm going to look at. I'm going to stop the screen share so people can actually see our wonderful faces again for a bit, and I'm going to go through some of the rumors that are alleged that people have seen either the entire book or the White Dwarf and told us what's going to be in there. So this is what's in there. Apparently 10 factions of A-elves.
Oof.
I don't know whether that means there are 10 different types of elf or whether elves feature in 10 different factions.
Did they mean 10 different types, as in 10 different battalion war scrolls, maybe?
I don't know, it just says 10 factions of elves. Or 10
Factions?
factions for the A-elves, so it doesn't say that each of those factions is entirely A-elf, so maybe they're scattered in among the other factions.
Yeah.
It says the Dwarden are definitely in there, Free Peoples, former Empire, Ironweld Arsenal, which, word on the street, is that this is going to be dwarf and human engineers, like an engineers guild with war machines. And apparently the organ gun is mentioned by name, which suggests that that model isn't going away.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter earlier. And even more surprising was the Empire steam tank was included in it.
Hmm.
Um, and I was
Interesting.
and I was certain that model was a goner.
Well,
Just because it is very old world. But I suppose you could carry it off as a sort of half Dwarden, half Free People, sort of Stormcasty type war machine.
also
Was it?
apparently included in there as well is a battle mages faction. I'm not sure what's going on there,
Ooh.
but apparently in the Order Grand Alliance, you've got Fire Slayers, the old dwarves with war machines. Now, I don't know if that means all the old dwarves are in there or whether it's just the war machines.
Mm.
Then lots of men and women, descendant of the old world residents, apparently. So the question is, though, I don't think anyone's actually mentioned Bretonnians yet, only Empire.
Oh.
So on the one hand, we'll find out which models and which races are going to be moving forward and aren't going to become irrelevant and scrubbed out of existence. And on the other hand, we're going to find out which ones are being tomb kinged.
Yeah. Were the Don't know if you noticed, were any Empire models on the last chance to buy section? I think I'll give it a quick.
Well, I'm going to go and have a look right now, actually. So I'm just going to open up the Age of Sigmar section, and let's see. Last chance to buy. In there right now, we have the Skaven Battalion, and
Skeleton Warriors.
yeah, Tomb King's Skeleton Warriors, and that's it.
Oh,
So
I was expecting Bretonnians in there.
apparently not. So maybe that means the Bretonnians are safe for now.
Maybe.
Let's see what we've got here. Something about the A-elves as well. People have been waiting for. Apparently there aren't that many of them alive, but they have a lot of magical knowledge and they've learned to tame various monsters. So maybe if it says there's 10 different factions for them, maybe that suggests that there aren't literally 10 factions of them. If there's not that many of them, maybe they just scattered in among the other factions. Like the Stormcast can have elf buddies who are helping them out. That would make sense if they're quite scarce in the world. Then, also, the Sylvaneth and Stormcast, obviously in there, Seraphon, Fire Slayers. Now, this is kind of annoying how they put all this stuff with all the war scrolls into multiple different books. And then they release another one and say, well, actually, this is the ultimate compendium for your army. And then the next week, there's another release, and well, here's the add-on book. And then the next week, and here's the one that squashes all them together.
I was really hoping that wasn't going to be a continuing trend. of just book after book of, with each one just adding like maybe a couple of new war scrolls or battalions to it, to what you've already got.
It'd be like if you were buying a computer game with DLC, and each time a new piece of DLC was released, you then had to buy the entire game again with the new DLC in it.
Yeah, pretty much. Did you buy, or have you bought any of the Stormcast books?
I have not, because I have not been convinced that they're giving us the full picture. And then I was proved to be correct, obviously, with the whole Extremis book.
Yeah, I bought the Bloodbound Battle Tome, thinking that was the Khorne releases done. Wrong.
Oh dear, oh dear.
I'll be expecting an update within the next few weeks.
And some more stuff we've got here. Apparently that's only the tip of the iceberg, because there are lots of old factions, such as the Devoted, which are fanatics, so I'd imagine that would include the likes of Flagellants, perhaps.
Yeah.
Free People Militia, Battle Mages, Elves, Darkling Covens, Phoenix Temple. Even if the Elves are in Order Alliance, they follow mysterious ways and are an autonomous force.
Right.
Right. So, interesting. And the Ironwell arsenal, it says here, is apparently human cannons and Dwarden steam engines.
Cool.
Which would be very interesting indeed.
So they're hanging on to the old Empire cannon kit for now then?
Could be. And obviously the Dwarden aren't the same as they used to be, so they don't have to have the old tradition of, well, we're very guarded over our technology and we don't trust any other races' engineers because they're all shoddy craftsmen and so on. Yeah. Maybe they're a bit more open to sharing their ideas now.
It sounds like it kind of reinforces that rumour that's been around for a while, that when the Dwarden do finally get new models, there'll be a sort of more of a kind of steampunk aesthetic. Not too far down that line, but, certainly more than they used to be. Like that, what was his name? Was it Grim Burloxon? Yeah, in that kind of vein.
Yeah, because when those dwarves were released, people were saying that they were quite a departure from the old ones, and it seemed to be almost laying the foundations for what was coming next. And then obviously the reason we didn't get new Slayers was because the Fire Slayers were already in the production line. So if we could maybe get the dwarf airship finally that we've been waiting for.
Yeah, I'm hearing lots of rumours about whether it's going to be an airship or some kind of steam-powered dreadnought type thing. I can't remember what the Dwarven called it.
Like an ancient ancestor golem or something.
Yeah, something like that. It's just a giant steam-powered metal thing with cannons and organ guns sticking out of it here and there. But I don't know. That might be pushing it a little bit too far into 40k territory.
The main question is how much of this stuff is actually going to be new models, because it looks like most of it will probably end up being repacks, and whether they'll have new models actually with this Grand Alliance order release, or whether once you've already bought that and thought, well, I can start using my Dwarden, they'll then release the big airship and maybe some new troops, and then they'll have another book to accompany that, like the Steamhead book.
Yeah.
And then you have to go out and buy that for another £30 on top of this book.
Would you buy it, being a dwarf/Dwarden player?
Well, I've currently got, looking over at my shelf, I think I've got 3 or 4, I think it might be 4 dwarf army books. So the previous 4, I haven't got the Fire Slayers book, but I've been waiting for them to kind of consolidate all of it into one book. But I don't know whether that's actually going to be an option, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think they would, though, with the Fire Slayers being sort of billed as a separate faction?
But the fact that they are a separate faction suggests maybe they'll have even more Fire Slayers in the future, so I should hold off on getting that book. It's a never-ending thing. Where do you draw the line and actually purchase the book?
I know, so at what point do you bite the bullet and just get whatever book is the newest, knowing that there'll probably be a new one?
Yeah, it just puts me off wanting to get the books at all.
I know.
It's
Like I said, I bought the Bloodbound one, thinking that that was the Khorne releases finished with for at least, I don't know, a year or two, or whenever armies get sort of revisited. But clearly that's not the case, and they're just throwing out models for Chaos and Stormcast whenever they feel like it.
that does seem to be the case in among all the other re-releases, and then occasional new stuff like the Fire Slayers.
Yeah, it is quite nice, not having, like the old days, not having to wait, year or years in some cases for a new book or new models, and getting them almost as a kind of surprise. That is quite cool, but at the same time, the book thing is kind of annoying.
Yeah. So, which armies from previous editions are you clinging on to at the moment?
Well, of course, I still have a large Chaos army, and much smaller Empire and Dwarf armies, which are getting a little bit of use, but I'm quite happy to replace them if new stuff comes along. I never didn't really bother with them that much.
Which models do you have for the Dwarfs and Empire? Do you have any of the stuff that you think might still be relevant?
I do, yeah. Quite a lot actually. When the dwarves were redone, what was it, 2013? They were.
It was a couple of years ago. That's all.
When the Hammerers and Hammerers Longbeards box and the Iron Drakes box came out, I thought they were just beautiful looking models. Certainly better than anything else in the dwarf range at the time, and I immediately just bought a couple of boxes of each of those, and Grim Burluxon and a couple of War Machines, and those have just pretty much sat in a cupboard. So
are they assembled and everything?
No, still in the sealed boxes.
That's good news then, because you'll be able to get them to match the new stuff.
Yep, the only ones that I'd sort of built, assembled, and mostly painted were the older dwarf models and a lot of the ones from the Battle for Skull Pass box.
Right, I've still got the guy who's about to do a Jeff the Chimera impression, who isn't painted yet. The old gyro bomber, not quite done. It's been at that level of paint for about 18 months at least now.
Other things just keep getting in the way.
They certainly do. But if the Dwarden gets some juicy new stuff, maybe I will have to actually knuckle down and do something with it. I'm not sure whether my current dwarf army would match with any new stuff that comes out, because obviously they've got the old classic green bases, because I painted all the new models to match the rest of my army, which was quite old. So
there's always a good excuse to have just a separate dwarf army for Kings of War, and then maybe another army with all the kind of newer bits and pieces.
Yeah, when Age of Sigmar first came on the scene, people saying, oh yeah, you'll be able to just stick with your old army and just use that. But it's so tempting to just get completely new stuff and not use the old models at all, just because they're all so new and shiny.
That's pretty much what I've done so far. Even though I already had, a few fantasy armies and a huge Warriors of Chaos army, I haven't really used them that much, and instead started, bought the starter box, and then just built a Stormcast and a Khorne army from there, and just keep adding to them. So I've been doing the Khorne half for the budget of Sigmar, and this is the last month of it now. So I've been certainly looking at what else I can do. It's never seem to want to go back to old armies. It's always just what's new, what's next.
Indeed. Now I'm going to delve into the comments again for a minute. So let's see what people have been saying. Amarai Westgate says those cheap paperbacks are great, apparently. Mini Warrior likes having a physical book.
Same.
And a couple of people saying that they don't like buying the books and they just use the app, and some people saying, well, they love having a good rigid book in their hand and they can't deal with apps.
Yeah, I'm glad you
What do
said
you?
book.
Yeah, what do you
Yeah,
prefer, book or app? E-book.
book, definitely book.
You
I don't
prefer
know.
something substantial you can actually wrap your hands around.
Yeah, I much prefer having the physical copy. And it's not just that; it's also with the physical copy, you also get some fluff in it as well. Oh, not a huge amount, but it is nice to read a little bit more about what's going on in the world. Um, Although I have been reading all the Black Library books for that as well. Um, but yeah, definitely physical copy.
Drunken underscore elf says we're getting old. We need books to hit our opponents, and iPad and phones just don't do that job. Well, they could, but it would cost you a lot of money if you hit your opponent over the head with an iPad. Probably. I'm not sure whether that would be covered by insurance. I would assume not. Master Dwalin loves the AOS books and is reading and loving the new background. Apparently,
Same.
how have you found all the new background compared to the old stuff since you've been well in there delving into it all?
It's obviously it's different. It's very different. Um, I'm a good bit into the fifth novel now, and it is just you can't compare it to the old world. It is a completely different thing. Um, but it's got enough familiarity to it to make it, I don't know, relatable. Um, I don't. You still hear, a lot of people complaining about the Stormcast not having any personality at all. If that's what you think, I would definitely say give the novels a try. Because obviously they can't. You can't have main characters in books that don't have any personality, and they certainly do.
Well,
They are
I think
they are
you
human.
probably can, but I'm not sure about these.
No, oh, they would be called Space Marines. Um,
Ooh, controversial.
um, no, the Stormcast make pretty good main characters in the books. They are a little bit uh, sort of religious, I suppose. They do bang on about Sigmar quite a lot, but they do have personalities. They do still remember when they were regular men.
Well, if I had physical evidence that some kind of supreme being was going to be resurrecting me within minutes of my death and just plonking me straight back down on Earth, I think I would be openly worshipping him quite
Yeah,
often as well.
it would certainly make you a little bit more religious when you know there is a god because you've met him.
Multiple times.
Yeah,
And he's picked you as one of his chosen warriors
yeah,
to be resurrected indefinitely.
see, that's some pretty convincing evidence, right?
It is. I don't think people would be arguing about that.
Yeah.
Seems pretty certain. Let's see, we've got Who's of Doom says he has the app but hasn't used it for gaming. A lot of people saying they just print out the war scrolls they're using, which is what I do as well. Apart from I like what they've done with the Age of Sigmar app. Actually, they've changed it so that you don't have to back out of each war scroll and then go into a new one again. You can just scroll through all of them in one big list for the army.
Oh, that's good.
Which is quite nice. So I found that quite handy for the Stormcast, where I only have a few different units. For the Dwarves, or the Dwardin, then I've got all of those printed out, which I find handier, because I've got a lot of different units for them. But when it's just a few, I think the app is fine.
Yeah.
Anything that's more complicated as well, because I don't have an iPad, I would rather have that printed out if there's a lot of text, because on the phone, obviously, it's difficult reading multiple really long paragraphs, and there are a lot of units now that have an obscene number of special rules.
Yeah, I'm not really a fan of using the app on the phone. It's too fiddly and too much effort when you can have it printed out or have the physical book right in front of you.
Indeed. Then we've got people talking about which armies they're going to be getting rid of, and they were saying that, well, they had to get rid of the Tomb Kings because they're Egyptians.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure. And if the Bretonians do disappear, then maybe that's because they're obviously very strongly themed after something.
If the Tomb Kings had been, the best-selling fantasy army, they would have found a way to make it work in the new setting.
That's why I would worry for the Bretonians as well.
Yeah, and
but
they're
not in that last chance to buy section, though.
No, I think a big part of the reason why the Tomb Kings were binned was because it wasn't a big selling model range. But nothing more to it than that.
Entirely possible. I think that the fact they were almost competing with vampire counts didn't help, because they're very similar. It's just whichever army's look you preferred, and people obviously liked the kind of vampire-y look over the Egyptian mummy look.
Yeah, I don't have an undead army, but if I had to pick one, I definitely would have went for the more traditional Count Dracula-esque undead.
Let's see. YouTube newbie is looking forward to having a rigid Slanesh book in his hand. Well, we don't know about that. I'm not sure if that's going to be coming. But yeah, we've got a lot of Khorne, and the Khorne just doesn't stop. We had a little bit of Zench, didn't we? And we definitely haven't had any Slanesh. Have we had any Nurgle since Age of Sigmar came out?
Nope. Not off the top of my head. But to be fair, they did get kind of spoiled just during the end times.
They certainly did. I think that Glotkin is enough to keep them going for a while. There's plenty of meat on that.
They got the Glotkin, the Magoth Lords, and got Rotspume. I think that's just kind of enough.
Malt Gruffelman says, get the audiobooks, they're awesome. Now, I actually have an audiobook which I haven't listened to yet.
Oh,
I need
really?
to do that.
I haven't listened to any of the audiobooks yet at all. But
are they the same stories as the actual books? Or are they something different?
No, they're different stories. Yeah, they're all different. Although I have been listening to bits and pieces of them and reviews of them on what's his name? I think Star Mini Gaming is his YouTube channel.
Yeah, he really delves deeply into the fluff, doesn't he? He's a bit of a fluff monster.
Yeah. So that's quite handy for if you want to catch up on the stories, either the books or the audiobooks. Because he's quite good for letting you know what's going on.
Craig Bowles says Brett's will be in last chance to buy section on Saturday. For those Bretonnian players are going to be anxiously hovering, clicking refresh on that page, aren't they?
I don't know about
the worst.
I don't know about that. I'd like to see what's actually in the Grand Alliance order book first, and if there are any Bretonnian units in there.
If they're just not mentioned at all, and then they all appear in the last chance to buy section,
yeah.
I think a deep depression is going to set in. There's an unprecedented number of deaths by self-lancing to the body. It's going to be horrible.
I really like the Bretonnians. I know that it was very they were very kind of just Arthurian, basically a mix of sort of Arthurian / chivalric French knights, but I thought they were awesome. That was the one army that I wanted to do before the old world came crashing down, but never got around to.
Well, they will always have their war scrolls, even if they do disappear.
That's true. It's just a shame that it's quite possible that I'll have to get the models from eBay soon.
Hooves of Doom says the number of scrolls in the books would seem to correspond all the other factions minus Brett's. So if they're the only ones that disappear, that would be pretty depressing, wouldn't it? Yeah. And think about how long it was that they went without a book as well. Those loyal players that were clinging on since whatever it was, 2003, was it?
Three.
Got a book.
Yeah, I think it was.
It's well over a decade now since they had any kind of support whatsoever.
I would have given up all hope years ago.
It's like those people that just sit at home because a family member goes missing or something, and they refuse to move house because they think, well, maybe one day they'll come back. And they never do, and they just end up sitting there, and it just dominates their entire life.
I mean,
they're waiting for that phone to ring, and it's never going to happen.
I mean, even the Tomb Kings got a newer book a few years back. So maybe that kind of makes me think that maybe the Bretonnians were actually the worst selling army, and not the Tomb Kings.
I don't know.
They went for a long time.
If something was a really low-selling army, you would think, well, let's inject some life into it to push it back up in sales, rather than just allowing an entire model line to rot.
I know. The sales of them would have to be really abysmal to not bother even trying to do that.
Maybe every single person that actually placed an order put a little note in it saying, by the way, if you ever release any new Bretonnian models, I'm not buying them.
I couldn't blame them.
Yeah, so they have only got themselves to blame if they were doing that. Skeleton Flower, wow, that example was kind of sad. Yes, it is, but I think it's appropriate. I think that actually sums it up very well. That's how I kind of view the Bretonnian players who've been clinging on for all these years, just because they were never outright told, look, we found the body. You can stop hoping now. They were just waiting all these years. And it is sad. And maybe now they can finally be put to rest and they can move on with their lives.
They can finally start to let go.
They can. I think this will be the first step. The next step, they've got to accept that the Bretonnians' fate, obviously. Yeah. And then after that, they can move on to other ventures. Maybe they can start a whole new army.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, you never know. There may be more Free People's models along at some point that are just as kind of slightly medieval-ish, but just without all the iconography.
There could be. I wouldn't rule it out, but I think Bretonnian players, it's going to be time to move on. Potentially, according to what a couple of people have said here on Saturday, that could be the day.
Do you think there'll be any Empire models added to the last chance to buy?
I would predict that there will be at least 1 or 2 Empire models on there.
Do you think the state troops will survive?
It's hard to say, because it's... Are you saying that the state troops are just bad models there?
I don't think that they're bad models, but they're very old world. The look of them, I mean, pretty much every single one of them in the kit is wearing the sort of old puffy / clothing. And they are very... I don't know. I just don't... I think that it's a bit much for them to fit into the new setting.
I'd say it's quite possible they get rid of them. They could get rid of the old dwarves, like the dwarf warriors, the thunderers, the quarrelers, and so on. They could be done because they weren't made with the new aesthetic in mind, like, for example, the Iron Drakes clearly were. Mm-hmm. Probably a few units from each army are going to completely disappear. Some of the more hideous models that we want gone are probably going to stay, though, like the Fellbats that we seem to mention every week. They're still...
Why?
They're still kicking it.
Surely that must be a sort of in-joke at GW. They're just keeping it going.
I don't know, it must be. Fluffy Dread says, Forge World to the rescue. Bretonnians with a War Altar and Ethereal Knights as well. I don't know whether that's just reckless speculation there, or whether there's some kind of inside info that Fluffy Dread has. Let us know either way. But where GW don't continue supporting certain armies, Forge World obviously have a history of picking up the baton with the Chaos Dwarves, for example. So maybe all isn't lost if some of the armies do bite the dust, as it were.
Can't wait to see what
did.
Can't wait to see what Forge World come out with next for the Warhammer Forge, if it's even still called that range.
Yeah, because they did have the giant Chaos Beastie, didn't they, recently?
Scarrock or something like that, or Scaronok.
Yeah, although that was more of a modification on the Kadai Destroyer, allegedly, that was unfinished previously, so I don't know whether they're actually going to start any new projects or not. We'll have to wait and see on that.
Sure they will.
Or whether they've got anything else half-finished that they can just modify slightly.
Well, maybe they've got a half-finished Dwarven airship lying around somewhere that they've just been waiting to roll out.
Maybe they have, but multiple other companies have started releasing Dwarven airships in the last few years. So they're going to have to make theirs pretty damn impressive to make sure people aren't just going to buy that one, which would no doubt be cheaper.
And I'm sure they would.
Cheaper. But every army needs a centerpiece, and I think the steam-powered dwarves with their little Empire assistants could definitely do with a nice big juicy airship. Yeah,
and as far as sculpts go, GW and Forge World don't often disappoint. So if they do decide to do it, I've no doubt it will be worth its weight in gold.
Apparently, Fluffy Dread has confirmed that it was just reckless speculation and that there was no juicy inside info. So anyone whose hopes were up there, you've been dashed instantly. Jason Biles says Bretonians will still be valid. They just potentially won't be in the Grand Alliance book. If you have Bretonians, you can still play them. Yes, of course you can. Whether they'll have the War Scroll up for download indefinitely remains to be seen. The Tomb Kings one hasn't disappeared yet, but the Tomb Kings War Scrolls are still in the last chance to buy section. Whether that just means this is where all the Tomb King models are, so you probably want to get your scrolls in the same place, or whether that means they're actually going to remove them from download and permanently.
You think that means it's our last chance to download before we just, when the Skeleton Warriors are gone, we'll delete this too?
Maybe, because GW aren't known for keeping rules around for models that they don't currently support. They did that a lot in 40k recently as well, because they previously were a lot of entries in codexes in 40k that didn't have models representing them. And then when they re-released a big wave of books, they just scrubbed out all those old entries in the book that didn't have models, because they realized we're never going to get around to making these. So let's just stop enabling all these other companies from releasing models that fill the gap in our range. So let's just completely scrub it out of the book once and for all.
Yeah.
So I would be surprised if the Tomb King War Scrolls are available for download indefinitely. I think it's more likely they'll eventually remove them. Of course, you can download them now, and I'm sure they'll still be floating around there because people will have them. You'll still be able to access them, just maybe not via GW.
No, I mean, there'll be new players coming into the game would look on GW's website and see this War Scroll collection for an army that doesn't exist.
Mirkwood says the War Scrolls will stay. They confirmed on the new Facebook page. But did they say they'll stay forever? Now, speaking of the Facebook page, our other topic, Games Workshop have really dipped their toes into the community big time here. Because a couple of years ago, they closed down all their social media presence, and they've recently opened it up again and started asking for people to leave pictures of their painted miniatures and so on. Started interacting, mingling with the unwashed masses a bit more.
It's a pretty surprising move.
It is. It seems to me like maybe the old way of doing it was so ingrained in them that it must have been someone from outside was brought in a position of somewhere in the management structure and took one look at the way they do business and thought, do you have any idea what year this is? Why are you not interacting with your customers? And they said, well, they said mean things to us. That's not a good enough reason in this day and age.
It does seem I suppose it does seem a little bit childish for them to sort of get a few bad comments and then throw the toys out of the pram and just shut everything down. If they get a lot of criticism, obviously, but who doesn't?
Yeah, and if the Facebook page is nothing but negativity, you just have people just go through and delete the meaner things. I think people appreciate, from what I've seen on there so far, especially the Age of Sigmar page, people do appreciate the fact just that it exists. So there hasn't been too much harsh criticism. Because people are almost walking on eggshells, maybe, because they think, well, if I say something too harsh, they'll just close it down again immediately, since there is a precedent for that.
Well, they might very well do, but there's no harm in them sort of dipping their toe in the water and seeing how it goes. So, every other miniatures company does it. So
yeah, there was no excuse for them not to be engaging with the community, though.
I know they are the biggest miniatures company. They should be not just trying it out. They should be right at the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, they should be at the forefront of all these innovations. It's free marketing almost.
Yeah.
No reason not to use it at all. The next step, obviously, though, they should be having representatives appearing on shows like this. Hint, 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 hint.
I'm not so sure about that.
I think probably they would have to have a list of approved questions beforehand. Wouldn't be able to bring it on them or ambush them with discussion of Kings of War or War Machine or something.
I know, you wouldn't really be able to sort of hit out with the old... So what do you think of Ronnie Renton now? Or what do you think of this, that and the other? I think they would only be willing to discuss what they're doing. and only in a positive way. Anything else, yeah.
They have got the Age of Sigmar rules FAQ upcoming as well, which they're asking for people's feedback on. They're asking people to submit questions, or one question each, should it be said, so that they can pass them on to the rules team and get some clarification on one or two things. So I think the things that were left open-ended before, like your summoning and like the precise way that the pile-in is worded and things like that, I think we could have a lot of that cleared up very soon.
Yeah, we've been certainly hearing a lot of rumours about another box set coming soon, with maybe Dwarden and Zinch in it. And I wonder if that does happen, if it'll include an updated rule sheet.
That would be very interesting, actually.
Well, if they do decide to bother listening to the community and people's suggestions and ideas about things that work and things that don't work. If they would actually change it, or they would just say, "Nah, we're right, just keep it the same."
If it is like the current starter box, except with two different armies, then that would be great for someone like me, who would be immediately interested in a Dwarden release, but perhaps doesn't want to spend an obscene amount of money on the models. Because obviously those boxes, you can virtually break even with them by buying them and then just listing half of them on eBay. Yeah. So if you're willing to put in that little bit of work, you're basically picking up an army for nothing, almost. Depending how desirable the other army is in there. If they're all hideous, you might have a bit of trouble.
I think, though, if they do another box set, I think it will be worth the price, even if you do only want to keep half of it.
It usually is, and of course you can always find someone to go halves on it with as well, as the alternative.
Yeah. There's always someone.
And of course, with it all being in plastic nowadays, very easy to convert all those models as well. And what I'm doing at the moment, actually, I'm looking into the best way to convert some of my Stormcast Liberators into the Judicators with the crossbows. So I've seen a few people that have done that online. I'm just looking at the bits at the moment, figuring out the best way to go about it. Because I've got a ton of Liberators, and I don't need 10,000 of them.
Yeah. See, I did it the other way around. I assembled my Judicators with the crossbows, so I had all the bows spare. So that makes life a little bit easier doing it that way around. I've decided to so I have to just stick a bow in their hand, and I've still got the little quivers that come spare. It makes life a little bit easier.
Yeah, I've also still got this guy on the painting table who still needs to be done soon.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't got round to him yet because other things keep jumping in his way. Because I've been attending some Kings of War tournaments, so I've been prioritising painting some of those Kings of War goblins up so I can actually fill out a 2,000 point army. Because the last one I went to, I was really tooling up all the units with an obscene amount of artifacts, as they're known, the magic items in Kings of War. And I think I need to just get more units painted, which I have been doing.
That's what's kind of been getting in my way of having more Age of Sigmar games, because I've got the Kings of War and the Frostgrave rulebook sitting in front of me, and I've been slowly but surely working my way through them. Actually, really like the look of Kings of War.
Yeah, it's a very good game, and Mr. Remington has actually pledged to try it out sometime as well with his halflings.
Really?
Since Kings of War is the only game currently in massed battle that has a rule set to support halfling armies.
Oh, do they? Oh, that's very good.
They do, in their new Uncharted Empires book.
I was looking at that, thinking maybe I could use my old 8th edition Warriors of Chaos army for that. But I really like Mantic's Ogres. I much prefer them to GW's army of fat guys.
The GW ogres with their kind of weird back and shoulder muscles.
Yeah, no, never really liked them at all. But the Mantic ones that are just they're all quite, buff and well armored. I really quite like them. So I went ahead and I bought myself an ogre captain just as a kind of a pledge to myself that this is going to be the start of a Mantic ogre army.
Fluffy Dread asks, does Kings of War support Skaven? Yes, they do. They're in the Uncharted Empires book as well. I think I saw someone playing them at a tournament, actually, as well.
Yeah. It's Ratkin or something.
Yeah.
They're called.
And interesting comment here. Neil Young says, I had the honor of playing a game of MechWarrior Online with Andy this week. Pure coincidence. Yes, because I use my YouTube username in MechWarrior Online, occasionally someone will just put in the game chat, hey, are you Andy from YouTube or from the Andy and Ben show? Just in the middle of the game. I think I actually got killed because I was responding to him, by the way.
You did that on purpose.
He may well have done. But I think it's like the third or fourth time someone's recognised my name in there, which is always nice for the A-list celebrity feel. It's almost on the level of being recognised in person. Almost. Being recognised in an online game. It's pretty close. So if anyone who does spot me in MechWarrior Online, which I do play quite frequently, then feel free to point out that I'm an A-lister. And then maybe some of the other players in there will see my name and think, I better go and check out his channel. That would be nice. Mirkwood says League of Rordia. Yeah, I think that's the name of the halflings in Kings of War. A lot of fun. They do have rules to represent most of the units that you had in some of the unofficial halfling rule sets previously. Not all of them, but you can usually figure out which entry in the list to use for certain things, even if they're not completely represented in there. They have things you can use, for example, the units of cooks with the big cleavers and the housewives, and you can figure it out quite easily. They don't make it too difficult. Same goes obviously for the likes of Skaven and Chaos Warriors and Tomb Kings are all represented in Kings of War. So very tasty indeed.
Cool.
Now, one big juicy development this week. We're only days away from Andypalooza / Remcon 1. We call it that because we're probably going to do quite a few of them. They're not starting off particularly huge. We're hoping there's going to be about 6 or 8 people at this one, including me and Rem. So quite a small, intimate affair to begin with. Maybe we'll get it into the hundreds eventually because of popular demand once people start seeing how amazing it is. But anyone who is available this Saturday to come down to Warhammer World to play a few games with us, they will have some kind of narrative tying the games together. The forces of good versus the forces of evil, most likely. Not sure whether we'll actually be able to tie the big alliances completely together. I know someone's bringing Chaos Demons. I think someone's bringing Undead, and then we've got a couple of Stormcast players, and I'll probably take the Dwarves. I'm not sure what Rem is going to use. Probably something evil so he can team up with the demons. So maybe his Beastmen or something like that. That would be nice. So
I'm quite upset that I won't be able to make this one. I've actually never been to Warhammer World before.
Well, we'll have to put on another one at some point soon.
And I was hoping to bring the Khorne army down. So give it the first proper outing as a full army.
Well, there's always next time. There are still a few places available because I have booked a certain number of tables, but a couple of people have had to back out for personal reasons this week. So place is still available. So head over to the Andy and Rem Show Facebook group and post something in there if you're interested, and we'll get in touch with you because we would like to know obviously how many people are coming beforehand and which forces they're bringing so we can plan a little bit in advance so we're not wasting time on the day working things out. Craig Bowles apparently is definitely coming with his Slanesh demons.
Cool.
So that's nice. And there was someone else, I think, who was in the chat earlier who is coming as well, but I can't remember who it was. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I think we're going to have some kind of multi-table scenario going on with several games at the same time. Not one huge game because that just takes a really long time in Age of Sigmar, and you end up waiting around a lot while people roll their combats. So probably going to have 3 or 4 games going on at the same time, all linked together somehow. So what happens in each game affects something on the next table along. Like if there's maybe my Dwarden are in the middle defending against some demons, defending some big portal or something, some kind of gate. And if it gets destroyed in a certain turn, then suddenly something terrible happens on the other 2 tables that would affect the Stormcast, that kind of thing. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And apparently Remington Steele has just appeared in the chat.
Oh, I just noticed.
Now, I have actually sent him a link to the Hangout, but I don't know whether he's available to actually join right now. He might be just watching on his way home. Nope, he can't get in on the action, so that means we're not going to be able to get any music. So maybe he could type in some music for everybody. That would be nice. Let's see.
That's definitely not music.
Mirkwood apparently would like to go to Andypalooza, but isn't sure if he can do it. Well, still places available, so you've got a few days to work out if you can make it or not. Then Remington Steele apparently has his didgeridoo right now, but we can't hear him. We're really missing out, aren't we? He's going to have to get that one out next week. Oh, there he is. He's typed like oh with O's and H's and W's. Close enough. Dreaming Cyborg. Are we allowed to bring our own scenery in that battle, Mr. Andy? If people want to bring their own terrain, I'm not sure whether...
Did I let you do that?
I think as long as you bring GW terrain, I think Warhammer World would be all right with that. As long as you're not bringing terrain that you've made yourself or from other manufacturers, that's probably fine. If you wanted to bring along your own realm gates or anything like that, I'm sure they'd be okay with that. And obviously all the models have to be painted that people are using in Warhammer World. Obviously official GW models only, which means I'm not going to be able to take my Colossus, which is one of the reasons I'm not taking the Stormcast. Also, it'd just be more of a pain to transport them with all the big giant wings on them, whereas the dwarves are nice and small and fit into a carry case quite easily.
They don't take up much space, do they?
They do not. Remington says Remcon equals awesome, Andypalooza equals zzz. Even though technically Remington is the only one who's ever fallen asleep on this show. So you could argue that if anyone has a problem with stamina, it could be him. And Andypalooza will be the one with the energetic output. But I think Team Andypalooza definitely is going to take this, because I've seen pictures of the Stormcast armies on the Facebook group that are being prepared, and they are quite vast. Let me just say that. So I think it's going to be dishlicious.
I wonder if Star Drake will hit the table.
I don't know whether anyone's got one ready in time, but I wouldn't be surprised if at least one or two people left Warhammer World with one more Star Drake than they went with, because there is the shop right there. So while you're playing games, your eyes just wander over there to the shop. Not just that, but the Forge World cabinets as well. Last time we were there, Mr. Remington's eye was taken by that squig gob lobber thing that spits out the squigs, and he couldn't resist buying that on the day.
I would be the same. Yeah, I don't think my bank balance would ever be the same again after a trip to Warhammer World.
Yeah, it's just all right there in one spot. Normally in a Games Workshop store, for a start, you don't have the inspiration of having the huge museum and everything and all the gaming tables there. And you also don't have just an entire dedicated Forge World area with huge cabinets. But in Warhammer World, it's just everything. And that little black library shop as well. And Bugman's Bar.
Oh, God.
There's something for everyone, really. You have to make sure that you've built up a decent cash reserve before you travel down there.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It'd be worth it, though.
Mickey Genver says Rem's stamina is legendary. I don't know about that. So, Mr. Rem, in the comments there, are you going to give everyone an explanation for your lack of appearance tonight in the comments, and I'll read it out, so then anyone watching this later will have the official excuse. Let's see. Mirkwood, do the staff swarm you, like in the stores? In Warhammer World, they tend not to swarm you so much. They say hi and everything when you come in, because the entrance, you just go straight into the shop, and you have to pass through the shop to get to the gaming area. But they don't really come and harass you or anything. Although being an international A-lister, I wouldn't be surprised if one or two of the staff are on me for an autograph. Because since last time we were there, my subscriber numbers have jumped above 2,000. I still need to do a video on that, actually.
Yeah. Rem just left a comment saying that you sent him a bad link.
Well, Mr. Rem, I actually sent you 2 links, and at least one of them should be good, if you're able to get in here. And, apparently he just got home as well. You know what? I'm going to send him another link right now, because I think we need to get this music. Right. I've sent him another link right now. And you know what? I'm going to try and invite him by other means as well. I'm going to try and invite him directly through the Hangout. Okay, There we go. I've sent him an official Hangout invitation now, rather than just a link. So we could be joined by Remington for some musical goodness any second. So maybe we should just sit here in complete silence and twiddle our thumbs while we're waiting. You know what? Let's not do that.
Yeah, no.
So, as far as...
Sorry.
What were we going to say?
Will there be... are you going to do... sort of make up some battle reports for Andypalooza / Remcon?
Well, I think we'll do a big overview, definitely. We probably won't go into too much detail, because obviously taking pictures will slow the games down and everything.
I know. You're not allowed to video there, are you?
You're not allowed to video, but you can take pictures. If we have an odd number of people there, and we end up with one of the games being a bit of a 2-on-1 situation, then it'll be easier for either me or Rem to just go around taking pictures, obviously. But if we've got an even number and we're all tied up with games, there'll just be a few pictures and we'll just have a big overview video of what happened, really. Maybe we'll discuss it on the show and show all the pictures and discuss exactly what happened. And then anyone that does turn up, we are going to have a little bit of video outside. At the very least, we need to get everyone saying tremendous damage on video. At the very least.
Right in front of the giant Stormcast statue.
Yes. Got some comments here. Rural Goblin has stopped going to GW stores because of being suffocated by staff. I've never actually been suffocated by the staff.
Not yet, no. I don't really get. I know my local GW in Glasgow, the staff don't really swarm you much. They're saying that if they recognise you and you're there fairly regularly, they don't really just kind of let you get on with it.
Yeah,
I think they realise like if you're in there quite regularly, you know what you want, you know what you're there for.
The Games Workshop in Manchester, usually when I go in there, it's usually not that busy because I don't usually go in like the prime time or anything. It's usually just to buy a single paint. So they usually ask what I'm painting. And then
that's how it starts.
Yeah, if I say that I'm painting some kind of GW product, they usually ask me more questions on it. If I tell them I'm painting something from another manufacturer, they usually just say, oh. And that's the end of the conversation. So if you don't want to be spoken to, just tell them you're looking for paints so you can like get a nice weathering effect on your War Machine, War Jacket or something.
Oh, I think if you mentioned a War Machine model, you would be asked to leave.
Well, actually, I did joke about that once with one of the staff and say, well, I would tell you what I was painting, but I think men in suits had come out and dragged me out the shop. And he got a bit defensive and was saying that, actually, we can talk about anything we want, really. You don't get thrown out for talking about other game systems. I don't know why people get that idea.
Not that I want to, get anyone into trouble, but had a few conversations with the manager in the Glasgow shop, and he doesn't just play Games Workshop games.
In the store?
Oh, no, definitely only Games Workshop games in the store, but outside of his work hours, no, he plays other things as well. Like, I think he does play War Machine, but he plays Bolt Action as well. So
he doesn't just lead people into a back room. Someone goes up to the counter and say, where'd you keep the good stuff?
Not yet. Well, maybe he does. I don't know.
Now, while we're waiting for Mr. Wren, a couple of questions were asked on the Facebook page earlier, which I'm going to look at right now. So, Mickey Jenber was asking if we were to LARP, as in live-action roleplay, as Age of Sigmar characters, who would we like to be?
That's difficult because there aren't many characters.
Yeah, I think we'll say you don't have to be a named character, you could just be anything. So the safest one to go with would be something like one of the big, ridiculously powerful characters. Because they don't seem to be dying. And if you look at how long all the powerful characters lasted in 8th edition, how many decades did all those people stick around before a few of them got killed off at the end?
That's true. I mean, Archaon seems to be the obvious answer.
But the problem is you do have to be constantly in battles, which increases your chance of being killed. If you're someone who's a bit more peace-loving and you only fight at the most desperate of times, Maybe your chances of survival go up a bit.
Maybe someone, I don't know, maybe someone like Ilario. I wouldn't mind, being a girl for a while. Since she managed to survive a world blowing up.
That's fair enough logic. Rob Lloyd Sweet says Andy's LARPing as Lumpin Croup. I think I would make a terrible halfling.
You're too tall.
Far too tall and far too thin to be a halfling, unfortunately.
Same. I'm in the same boat. Way too tall.
I could maybe be a skeleton warrior. Right, I'm going to send Mr. Rem another link now, because that one apparently wasn't working either.
Yeah, the links didn't work on mine either until I used my phone instead.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with this Hangout right now, but Mr. Rem, maybe you should try a different device if you want to get in here, because people are itching for that musical goodness. So try a different device, different browser, anything. Just get your no good Remcon loving butt in here, so we can have a musical outro before I actually die. Remington Steele thinks I should be Witchfinder General. He apparently thinks I bear more than a passing resemblance to Vincent Price in that film.
What was the Witchfinder General's name? Was it Matthew Hopkins or something?
The character's name?
Yeah, the character's name.
I do not know.
I think it's Matthew Hopkins, something like that, because it was a real person. Or it's based on a real person.
And I remember in Blackadder they had the witch smeller.
Yeah.
Which
witch
was
smeller pursuivant or something? Pursuivant.
And when he was interrogating Blackadder's horse at the trial, that was a classic moment. Mickey Genver, why not LARP as Sigvald himself? Well, I think if someone were to actually dress up as Sigvald, that would actually cause Mr. Skeleton Flower to have some kind of episode with excitement. So I don't know whether anyone should actually do that. Rhino of Pleasure, LARP as a demonette. Would need some big crab claws for that. Would be quite difficult.
Not an awful lot else, though.
No, you wouldn't need too much of a costume outside of just crab claws. They're not known for their high level of clothing. Mickey Genvet Neferata. Skeleton Flower actually says he would cosplay as Sigvald's wife. Can't remember her name at the moment, he says. I don't know if Sigvald has a wife. Is that in the fluff?
I don't remember. I read the Sigvald book, but I don't remember him having a wife.
That would require women to be in the fluff, and that doesn't seem to happen.
No.
Not too many of them at all. We still don't have a women faction at all. But it did say in the notes for the order that apparently there are lots of men and women who are descendant of the old world factions.
I really do hope we see some female models, like a redone version of like the Sisters of Sigmar, or even just some female warriors. I think the Blood Reavers box is great, but I would have liked it even more if half of them had been female. Skeleton Flower, he has a wife in the book. Well, does he? I don't remember.
Apparently. Malt Graffelman wanted to be the Great Unclean One. And apparently Mr. Rem cannot get into this hangout. Apparently technology has abandoned him on 2 different devices. Even though I invited him through the hangout as well. So it looks like we're going to be sadly Remless tonight, unfortunately.
Oh.
So I think we have run the world dry of discussion topics for this week. I'm just going to have a quick look to make sure I didn't miss anything urgent that people wanted us to discuss. Nope, it was mainly just that who would you like to LARP as question that people put in there, which came in from Mickey Genver. So, folks, of course, it's been wonderful to have you all with us on this fine evening for the 40th edition of the Andy and Rem minus Rem show. Rem, of course, will be in attendance at Andypalooza/Remcon on Saturday. So if you want to come down there, there's still places available. And he'll be back next week, no doubt, to discuss the fallout of Remcon and Andypalooza, which is going to be quite significant fallout, I imagine. We'll be discussing the games we played and the wonderful narrative that I'm no doubt going to weave throughout the day. And before that as well, we're actually going to be doing a battle report on video as well. So people can look forward to seeing that probably early next week with any luck. The patron-fueled battle reports. All the wonderful patrons out there. So all you patron members, all you patrons of our Patreon patronage, all you people out there, thank you. A very large amount of thanks heading your ways, and a large amount of battle reports over the next few weeks, obviously. One coming up very soon. And I don't think I can waffle any more about Patreon.
The less you say about it, the better. I think it's a classier move.
I think it is. Especially, there are some of the higher levels of membership available, though, which actually come with complimentary snack service throughout the show.
That's always worth mentioning.
You do have to provide the snacks yourself. You're just allowed to eat them, basically. That's all it allows you to do. So, with that, I think I'm going to open up the logo for this evening's show, which is going to be edited at some point very soon, because Mr. Rem couldn't make it, so I might have to take his face out of it. But there you go. And thanks to Mr. Stew for filling in for Mr. Remington. I think people can agree you've done a sterling job in his absence.
Thanks very much. My pleasure. Always nice to have a chat and catch up.
Indeed. And of course, the Andy and Rem Show is brought to you by Dark Ops. When it comes to laser cut terrain, Dark Ops is the tops. And I've actually just finished painting my Dark Ops Cemetery set, which is going to be featured in an upcoming battle report very soon. So you can assume that there's going to be some kind of undead going on in that. Some sweet, sweet skeleton zombie action going on, which is going to be sweet, sweet indeed. Of course, folks, remember to like the video. Remember to, after it's over, refresh the page and leave a permanent comment and let everyone know how amazing the show was. And any of you patrons should, of course, let everyone know what wonderful value it is to be able to watch the show as many times as you like through a telescope for a small fee. And with that, we bid you good night, folks.